Hi everyone, welcome to Ignited Learning through Genius Hour with Anthony Speranza. I am very pleased to introduce you all to Anthony. He is the ICT Teaching and Learning Leader at St Mark's Dingley in Victoria, Australia. He is, I think, well known now for his work with Genius Hour in Australia and sharing the word around the world, and he's even presented at the ISTE conference, the largest e-learning conference in the world. He's currently implementing a one-to-one Chromebook program at his school and supporting teachers and students from Prep to 6 to utilise Google Apps for education. He's an authorised Google trainer, Google certified teacher, and the recipient of the 2014 DLTV Educator of the Year award. That was thanks to the DLTV Teaching Victoria. He is really passionate about contemporary spaces, pedagogies, and collective practices, and he's certainly very passionate about student-centred learning and effective pedagogies. He's an avid speaker at local, state, national and international level, and we are lucky enough to have him with us here today. So I'd like to formally welcome and thank Anthony for this presentation.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Riz, and welcome to everybody. Where it is 8 o'clock on Sunday morning here in Australia. It is very rainy outside as well, but it's great.
So while Anthony's checking his audio, I will take a couple of minutes just to say that I was fortunate enough to travel with Anthony to Google on the Australian Council of Computers in Education study tour in 2013. So he's got his slides. He's got his 80-20 slide up there with the photo of Google at the time, and that certainly was an amazing experience. And I think while Anthony's checking his mic, I'll just pop in and say that the thing that I think Anthony and I both walked away with an amazing experience after this, and it wasn't so much the technology that they used, but it was about actually how they treated their people and the culture that they'd set up in their workplace. And you can see there he's talked about fostering innovation, encouraging creativity and increasing satisfaction, and that really was evident in everything that they did. All right, I think he's back.
Can you hear me, Narissa?
Thank you. Welcome back. The non-chipmunk version.
Okay, let's keep persevering. Let's keep trying. Thanks for filling in. So, as you said, one of the conversations we had, Narissa, on that study tour is once we started unpacking this idea that Google engineers had, I guess, 20% of their working week towards a personal project of their own choice. And seeing some of the products like Gmail, for example, or Google Street View as a result of this 20 time, started to think, well, what would this 80-20 time look like in the classroom? And we said to ourselves that we suppose it would be a highly personal project for them. It would be an employment of inquiry, which would be good. The students would be self-directed in their learning and no doubt intrinsically motivated to succeed and do well. We wanted to give them an opportunity to collaborate with other students and really collaborate on something meaningful. And I guess it was a great outlet for creativity and using ICT for exploring and communicating. And so we thought, well, this sounds very familiar to what we know as passion projects. I guess passion projects have been around for a long time, but we did a little bit of research and we found, in fact, that the term Genius Hour and 20 time in education can be really observed in the last 2 to 3 years. From one of Dan Pink's articles about motivation and allowing employees in workplaces to take their own 20 time. Some teachers on Twitter said, well, maybe we should do our own little Genius Hour in our classroom. And so I guess this term Genius Hour was born. And what we found was there were literally hundreds of blog posts, you know, really just people advocating Genius Hour, trying it in their classroom. And there's a couple of resources that I can really recommend in the sessions there. I've got a link to the wiki and the live binder and Cyber Man's library, and they're all resources that I used when I came back to Australia from the study tour, and using those in designing our Genius Hour program with our students. So when we came back, literally spent maybe about a week just planning this, and I took the mentality of ready, fire, aim. That being that, you know, I didn't want to make a laborious plan and spend a term planning this and doing this with kids. We really wanted to come back, make a simple plan, do it with the kids, and then adjust it later. So we developed 10 principles of Genius Hour. So we walked into the classroom, we said, okay, we've got this idea, we've just come back from Google, they spend, you know, one day of their working week towards anything they like. I'm going to give you an hour to do the same. I want you to start with a question. and also want you to be larger than Google. What that means is we didn't want them to find or pursue an inquiry that could be answered by a really simple Google search. We wanted them to work towards a project, so it might be something that they'd make or do or teach for other people. And we encourage them to think about what their impact might be. So, you know, could they teach another person? Could they make something for the community? Could it be for the wider community? With number 5, we set them the expectation that they were going to share their learning. So they were going to share that to their classmates. There was also going to be an open expo day at the end of the term where everybody would come in to see their Genius Hour projects. Number 6, we were strongly encouraging them to present and capture digitally. That way, when it comes to sharing, it's a lot easier, particularly then we had the idea that we'd post all their products to our school blog, and then that means that we could reach a wider audience as well. Number 7, we're teaching them obviously how to cite information, but we found this was really useful purpose of including bibliography because any images or research they've done should be referenced. Now, number 8 was a little bit of a contentious one. We said to them, do not ask for a mark. We tried to break the expectation that the teacher was going to tell them how good the project was going to be. We really wanted them to decide that for themselves. Number 9, we gave them the option to learn by themselves or with others. And number 10, we did say to them that you can only work on the project when they are up to date with all of the rest of their schoolwork. So we used Albert Einstein as our inspiration, I guess. And genius can be defined as exceptional intelligence or creative power or other natural ability / talent. And we thought, well, why can't this be all students? And Albert Einstein contributed an immense amount of knowledge and wisdom on the world, and why can't our students contribute to the world as well? So we're really trying to raise that bar for the students. So we developed a proposal and a plan, and we sent this out via a Google document, and all the students had to complete this and answer questions like what their question was going to be, why it was going to be worthwhile, how it was going to be justified, what sort of materials, resources they would need, and a little bit of a skinny plan as to how they'd use their time that term. We asked them to think about 10 things they love to do and learn, or 10 things they're good at, or 10 things that they wonder. We try to make the point that they could use this time to really pursue the things that they've always wanted to pursue, but never really had the opportunity during their school lives. So what we said to the kids was, there you go, that's all it is, ready, set, go for it. And the overwhelming majority of kids, they were just so incredibly fired up, and they just stood up and just like shouted yay, and they went for it, and they just were rip-roaring, like they couldn't believe the opportunity they'd been given. However, it was quite surprising because there was a small minority of students who were a little bit disorientated, a little bit bewildered by the whole opportunity, not really knowing where to start. And in fact, there was an even very, very small minority of students who actually broke down and started crying. They just did not know how to take this opportunity, and they did not even know where to begin. It really surprised us because I guess what we know about our kids in terms of you know, outcomes and who the kids are that are above standard and below standard, we thought we had a pretty good idea of that. But when it came to how kids coped with this idea of creativity and freedom, it was quite surprising because a lot of those kids who we thought were above standard, they literally struggled in the initial stages of this Genius Hour project. And I guess that's the sort of kids that, you know, if you give them, you know, what's A plus B, you know, they'll tell you the answer straight away. But if you ask them to find their own and develop their own problems, they really struggle with that. So it was quite interesting. So we still wanted to persevere through this though. If we said that, well, we value this type of learning, how do we continue to support all learners during these modes? And we found that there were some students that really struggled with this because we thought that we were doing a good job in terms of allowing our students to be inquiry-based learners. But when we gave them true freedom in inquiry, some of them really did struggle. I think a lot of it came down to mindset. We tried to instill into our students that their confidence and attitude is everything to success, and trying to get our kids past those lower 2 rungs of the ladder there. So, you know, that whole idea that a lot of those kids, when they first reacted, said, I won't do this or I can't do this. But we want to try to and get them to believe in wanting to do it and thinking about how to do it. And then from there, we can help them step up that ladder to success. So this was back in 2013, and it was in term 3. And we had 65 projects uploaded to our blog. And if you click on the resources and get this slide deck, you'll be able to click on that link and see all those 65 projects that were uploaded. We gave them a 1-hour expo, And here were some of the examples of the typical questions. How do planets revolve around the sun? Why are surfboards made out of fiberglass? Why are we drawn to our own nationality groups, and does it actually matter? A really interesting final question on that one there. What I also did when I came back to Australia was talk at local teach meets saying, I've come back from Google, they've got this idea, we've developed this GeniusHour program, I'm trying it with my class, here's what I discovered, you want to try it as well, you know, let's connect. And, you know, through the last couple of years I've been able to connect with quite a few schools and educators that are doing GeniusHour, and that's been really, really good. So prototype version 2. So we did this in term 3, 2013. Term 4, 2013 came around, and this time what was really interesting was that students elected to work more collaboratively, because you'll notice that there were 65 projects last time, now there were 45 projects. So out of 130 kids, we found that the kids wanted to work together more in larger groups. We gave them a 2-hour open expo because we found that 1 hour wasn't simply enough, and there were kids are saying, you know, I didn't get a chance to show so-and-so my particular model that I made, you know, we need a longer hour expo. And so we thought that after approaching GeniusHour and refining this, we'd expect that there would be an improvement of the projects and the quality of the projects. And here are the examples of some typical questions. Type of paper plane flies the longest distance. How can I create an educational computer game so people can learn more about statistics and probability? So really getting into that idea of, you know, using technology to make something that can have a knock-on benefit for somebody else. And that was really interesting. Here are some other examples of kids' projects that term, how can we build a billy cart, which design is the best. And those two boys took 2 separate approaches, and they built them and they tested them and they brought them to the expo day, and they had a great time, you know, testing them out, and got other kids to test them out as well. And in their presentation, they showed step by step how to make a billy cart. So not only were they making something for other people, they were also teaching them as well. How can I attach an engine to a bike to make it go faster? So this student actually used his help from his dad, got a little motor kit and strapped it onto a bike, and he brought it to Expo Day and rode around, and I rode around, and it was really great. How can we help endangered sea creatures? So these girls decided to do some research into what endangered sea creatures are out there and why they're endangered, and try and do a little bit of education to others about what we might be able to do about those. Okay, so prototype version 3. This was last year, 2014. We were fortunate enough to walk with Tom Barrett and Notosh in a project between our school district and a couple of other schools. And we started to employ more of a design thinking approach to our GeniusHour program. One of the very first things we did was, in fact, watch another school's GeniusHour presentations live on Google Hangouts. So again, if you click on the links, you can go to the particular school that we shared with. And again, this all stems from going to that teach meet and telling other teachers what we're doing, and other teachers trying it and then connecting with us and saying, you know, we've got our kids that are doing GeniusHour, they're loving it. It would be great if we could show them on Hangouts and get your school, your kids to view them as well. So we did that, and we shared a Google document between the 2 schools. And that we were able to ask questions to the kids, and they were able to answer them live, and that was a really worthwhile experience. There were a couple of areas that we really wanted to focus on last year, and that was that whole idea about being larger than Google. We really felt that there were some kids that, you know, they were using Google searches effectively, but they were answering really basic questions. And we thought that we should spend a lot of our inquiry and class time teaching kids how to pursue these really basic Google searches, but maybe they should be using their GeniusHour for something a lot far deeper than that. Number 4, we really didn't see much of an impact. I mean, kids were teaching other kids, but it wasn't really going outside our school community again. So we were saying that if they could upload their work to our blog, our blog has a potential worldwide audience. So if you can put blueprints and teach other kids effectively on a PDF that explains your project, and we can put that on a blog, then you might be able to teach other people outside of Australia. And number 5, share your learning. We really wanted to do our own Google Hangouts at the end of the term as well. Here is Notosh's design thinking tool. So I won't go into too much detail about these, but there were a couple of these particular tools that really did make a difference. The first one was that we really gave kids just time to ideate. So that is just brainstorming potential ideas for GeniusHour before. I mean, they were kind of selecting something and then just going with their gut reaction, but we wanted to give them more time to develop a lot of ideas. So we did this exercise called 100 Ideas in 10 Minutes, which is where you give, you can do this with adults or kids, give them 10 minutes to write down as many ideas as you can, try and get to 100, no judging, you know, no yes, but, if, not, whatever, just write down as many ideas as you can. And we found this was really effective because, I'm not sure if you could see on the slides there, but number 38, it says there, the chicken or the egg. So the kids were really getting to the really deep and tricky questions to pursue. We also decided to filter the questions as Googleable and non-Googleable. So we said to the kids, well, you know, all these ideas that you've come up with, that's great. Let's filter them now. Let's decide which ones can be answered by a simple Google search and which ones can't. Like, for example, that pink post-it note, which says, how might we stop global warming? And that was a great example of a non-Googleable question. Now, the case for it was quite simple. I won't show this video, but this is, in fact, a video of IBM's Watson supercomputer, where IBM developed this supercomputer. They fed it all the world's information and developed programmers developed algorithms for it in able to listen to Jeopardy questions and answer them. And now this supercomputer played against champions of Jeopardy, and this supercomputer wiped the floor with them. Okay, so we try to explain to the kids that technology now at our fingertips, being that we can answer all of these really simple questions like what is, why is, who is, you know, all those sorts of things. And we developed a Googleable, non-Googleable post with the kids and said, well, a Googleable question is something that can be answered by a simple Google or library search. Like, for example, what are reptiles? Or which reptiles live in the Amazon? A non-Googleable question was something that could not be easily answered by Google or a library search, but they may help you find the answer. So something like, which animals may not exist in the Amazon in 15 years' time? So, you know, Google might connect us to some information, library search might help, but it's definitely not going to be able to solve that question for us very easily. We also use this question ladder with them to demonstrate that if we're asking questions like, who is Albert Einstein? What are reptiles? Where is the Amazon? We can find the answers to these very easily. And I think it's important as educators we show kids how in fact we do these things. But on the other hand, using Genius Hour to be able to pursue something far more complex, like how might we achieve something, or why might this happen? And so when we were developing our questions with the students, we gave them this matrix to use to enable to filter and develop their questions to get to that really deep and meaningful point. What we also did was, when the projects were approved, we put them up on the wall so that we could spark interest in conversations. And as I was touring one of the Google offices last year in Sydney, Swan, the head of education there, said that you'll notice that when you walk around the Google offices, all the partitions are only at waist height. And that is because they want employees to be able to see and hear what other people are talking about, so that it encourages that idea of collaboration. So we thought, well, when they're approved, we're going to put them up on the wall so we can see, you know, not only is a milestone that it's a great thing that it's been approved, but also that there might be kids that could offer input to some of those projects. Okay, so Genius Hour in Term 2 in 2014, we had 54 projects uploaded to our blog. We had a 2-hour open expo, and we shared 10 of our presentations on Google Hangouts. We had an estimated audience of around 350 students and teachers from Australia, and a couple that watched afterwards from the US. Now, you can see the big difference here in the type of questions that they're asking, like how can we change the weight and size of a netball to make it easier to use? Or how might we create and market an original recipe for an energy drink? So it was really apparent that this work we were doing with some of the Notosh ideas were having a real knock-on effect with the sort of inquiries that our kids were developing. Here's an example of our multimedia studio where we're broadcasting live our Hangouts. And so you can see there that there are 2 students talking in front of the webcam, and they're presenting their Genius Hour project in a 3 or 4 minute just elevator speech. And while that was happening, there were classrooms around the world watching live via Hangouts like we are right now. And we gave them the opportunity to ask questions. And so we got those questions, and I had a couple of teachers that were giving me a hand, and they put those questions in a presentation. And at the end of the 10 presentations, we put the questions up, and the kids came up there, and you can see that one there. So most of the, how might we save endangered sea creatures? And a student outside of St. Mark's said, are most of these endangered animals affected by human actions? And so those kids got up there, and then they answered that question live to that particular audience member. So last year, what we started working towards was that whole idea of, okay, well, there are some other schools doing Genius Hour now. Can they be working maybe together with us because we are using the Google Apps platform? And that's exactly what we did with St. Francis in Box Hill. And so you can see here on this document here that we've got a Google document shared between the two schools and 2 students from St. Mark's and 2 students from St. Francis. And they're sharing their initial ideas before they get started on their projects. And we also had to set up weekly hangouts between the 2 schools because we found that it wasn't sufficient enough for kids to use the chat function or the comment function between the 2 documents because you couldn't really have a proper conversation that way. So we set up a weekly hangout supervised with the teachers so that they could meet the other people in their group. And so we had 3 of our students working with 4 or 5 of their students to create 3 projects that were created by 2 schools that were 15 kilometres apart. And that was really, really interesting to see. Here is a word cloud of all of the questions we had in that term. And what was really apparent is that kids were now starting to get into that whole idea of how can I make something for someone? And that was really interesting to see. So late last year, we had 53 projects, again, all uploaded to our blog. And this time we had 10 presentations shared on Hangouts. We had an estimated audience of about 450 worldwide. And like I said, 10 of our students worked with other schools. And again, you know, some really interesting questions coming up. We've seen constantly when we've refined this Genius Hour reiterations each time that the questions just continually improve. Like, how might we educate people about multiculturalism through a piece of artwork? And so, you know, those students went and designed a piece of artwork and it's now displayed in the school, and they were even thinking about putting it on a roadshow this year as well. Okay, so there is a little bit of further reading and viewing. Look, I mean, I've blogged a lot about Genius Hour. It is obviously something that I am very passionate about, and it is something that I think is picking up world pace, particularly in Australia. Let me just get the screen sharing back for you. Narissa, is there any questions so far while I set up for the next part of the session?
We haven't had any questions yet, but we are accepting questions on the Edu on Air site on Google+. I'm just wondering, you just mentioned about the students having better questioning. Is that because you became better, you refined your ability to teach effective questioning? Or were the same students having a second opportunity at participating in the Genius Hour, say in grade 5 and then again in grade 6? So was it, do you think it was more the fact that you'd refined your teaching or that the students were having another go at it?
Yeah, look, I think what happened was that as we developed our own understanding through those no-tosh workshops, we also developed our own expectations of what those non-Googleable questions were, those deep and complex questions. And therefore, when it came to accepting and approving those questions, I guess we'd use that filter as well. So if we came across something that we thought, you know, was not very deep and was fairly Googleable, we'd put that back to the kids, give them feedback on their document and say, you know, have you thought about this? Because this, at the moment, can be answered fairly easy with a Google search. So I think as the students last year were in year 5 and then coming up into year 6, as they've been in that Genius Hour process, you tend to find that they are a little bit better at developing those questions and pursuing and persevering through those end products. And I think, yeah, as teachers as well, we've become a lot better at that too. Okay, so...
sorry, can I just ask, you said that some students had a go, they did it in grade 5 and then when they went into year 6, what was the students' reaction when they found out that they were able to do it again? Because you said at the start that students are really excited and pumped about this whole idea of kind of free choice. So what happens once they've been through it and they have the opportunity to do it again? What was the feeling from the students?
Well, what was really interesting was the first time we did this in 2013. You know, it was just like a trial, so let's just see what happens, yeah. And that was in term 3. And at the end of the term, the student said to me, "Oh, we're doing Genius Hour again." And I said to them, "How could we not do Genius Hour? I mean, I've seen how much kids really enjoy this. You know, and we've done quite a lot of surveys with kids in terms of evaluating how they sort of feel and think through Genius Hour. And to me, it's really engaging them to unprecedented levels, I believe. And so, I guess it's something that they just look forward to every week, and they're always asking, when's Genius Hour this week? Is it going to be on Thursday? Is it going to be Wednesday? When is it? And so I guess what the other thing that was quite interesting too, given the Open Expo, is that our students coming into Year 5, they already started to pre-plan and pre-think of potential ideas, because as Year 4s, they were at the Open Expo and they could see all of these products that kids were making in Year 5, 6. And so they were really excited when they'd come into Year 5, 6 themselves to pursue their own Genius Hour projects. Okay, so a couple of links that I just want to share with you. Like I said, on our school blog, which is stmarks56.global2, if you look at under our category Genius Hour, you'll find every single Genius Hour project that our students have done in the last couple of years. And on my personal blog, you'll find all of my reflections and resources as well. I won't play this because you won't be able to hear the audio through here, but this is just a little reflection that we did as part of that project last year. And so we asked kids what they thought about working on Genius Hour, what they thought about sharing to the school community and presenting on a wider audience through Hangouts. And so we took a little bit of footage and recorded some kids. And so if you want to go and watch this on our blog, you definitely can. It just gives really fascinating insights as to what kids perceive this whole idea as Genius Hour. One of the other graphics that we developed quite recently is this, this target. We found that kids were really, I guess, in the proposal stage, they would say, okay, well, it's going to have a benefit for everyone in the world. You know, we try to get kids to really think about how that was actually going to eventuate. But we made this target, and we did this at the end of last year. And we asked the kids, okay, now that Genius Hour is done and dusted, plot on that graph what your impact was. And we'd hope that all students would be able to say, okay, well, I taught myself, you know, so that's great. But were they able to give us reasons and evidence of being able to teach in the school community? What did they have at their expo day that enabled that teaching to happen for the school community? Or did they have evidence in their presentation or in what their endeavours were of an impact on the wider community or state? And what we found was that even though the kids' intentions at the start of the project was to, yeah, I'm going to teach the world, you know, that by the end of the process, it didn't quite eventuate. So what we've done now is using this diagram at the start of Genius Hour to say, okay, let's really think about when you do your proposal, how you're going to make that impact. And one thing as teachers as well is that we need to be really conscious that if kids are saying, okay, here is my plan to teach or make something for people in the wider community, we need to make sure that we can support them through that process so that they will be successful in that endeavour. So getting them to plot there, whether it was on what sort of level, and also whether they were making something, whether they were doing something, or whether they were teaching something. So this diagram, I think, has really expanded the perspectives of not only teachers, but the students as well. I have a poster here which you can download from my blog as well, of our Googleable and non-Googleable poster. And recently we've also developed an infographic that just explains to teachers and to kids our 10 principles of Genius Hour, which just displays them in a little bit nicer format than that original slide that I showed you with that red font with 10 principles, which is what we had when we first came back into the school. You know, didn't have time, we didn't want to invest time in developing something fancy like this, because we thought we might refine the principles and even their understanding of those ideas. So that infographic might be helpful to anybody that's wanting to pursue Genius Hour or is currently doing Genius Hour and wants something to sort of explain that these are our principles that we developed and it sort of works for us. And every school is different, but you know, anyone is welcome to sort of use that at their own leisure. Before we wrap up and answer any questions, just a couple of closing thoughts. First of all, Genius Hour, I think, can be a little bit of an oxymoron. What I mean by that is that does that say about our other learning areas? I mean, if kids are really engaged in Genius Hour and not in anything else, what is that saying about the delivery of the rest of our curriculum? And so that's something that we're grappling with. And I know Jenny Magara earlier today, she would have talked about how you extend Genius Hour into just a Genius Day or a Genius Year, and taking these ideas of Genius Hour I think is really important because, you know, as a model, it's great, but to me, it's only just one little step in terms of how we can sort of redefine learning experiences for kids. And second to that point, I guess that whole idea of make a culture and invent to learn that we're seeing a lot of, I think there could be there are a lot of parallels between these, and even project-based learning, there's no reason why a lot of these things can't come together and start to reshape the idea of school. But the problem is that we do have, conformity and I guess the need to deliver curriculum, which can be difficult to integrate at times. But I think it's really important that we think about how we deliver that curriculum and still give what the kids are entitled to, but not necessarily deliver it in the way that we're traditionally used to delivering it. But have seen some interesting knock-on effects. So the kids are developing now quality dispositions and habits of mind. I think they're far more curious now. They develop, even when we do our inquiry questions, they develop far more meaningful questions during those inquiries. And what we've realised during this process is even some of our basic inquiries in the integrated units of science and geography and history and arts, that a lot of those questions were pretty superficial. So it has had a lot of knock-on effects, not only for teacher development, but for our students as well. As I said in the beginning of this presentation, passion projects have been around for a while. And I think as time has progressed, now Genius has come into the forefront. I think this might be the impact of, the ubiquitousness of technology that we have, because I remember doing a project when I was in primary school, in grade 4, so in 1994, and I did a project about dinosaurs. And I loved that. Like, that was one of my highlights that I remember from my primary school years of a passion project of mine. And, back then I'd use some books in the library. A teacher might have had some resources, and I'd investigate about dinosaurs and so on. But now that we've got so much access to information, it's funny that we've sort of come full circle around, again, this whole idea behind passion projects, but now a lot of people getting really excited about Genius Hour, which is great, being that kids have so much access to information. They've now got ICT in their hands where they can make things and they can teach other people using those platforms as well. I really like this idea of Guy Claxton's 3 R's and 3 C's. And I think whether it's makerspaces or Genius Hour or project-based learning or passion projects, when I read this, this really struck to me because I was thinking about what we're doing in Genius Hour, but how it could be emulated in other areas of our school. And coming down to that, if you're giving kids these opportunity to have responsibility, to create and do real things, choice, which we know is so important, collaborating, which we know is really important, but really, are they well and truly collaborating or not? And that whole idea that we can raise, I think Genius Hour for our students and teachers has been quite challenging, particularly to develop something that is complex and non-Googleable, but not only that, to pursue that for a whole term, even term and a half sometimes when we stretch over semester, is quite difficult. But I think extremely invaluable because a lot of kids, sometimes they only get projects to be completed over the course of 3 days. And so being able to collaborate with a bunch of peers and be able to put in plans and engage in a learning loop over a longer period of time, I think is really meaningful because I think this is exactly what they do when they go into the workforce, that they will have to pursue these types of projects. Okay, Narissa, how are we going with questions?
Oh, Anthony, I was just wondering, you were just saying about the difference between, or how it has been difficult for the staff as well as the students to initially get started in Genius Hour. And on the Genius Hour hashtag on Twitter, someone has posted an image and it says, the greatest sign of success for a teacher is to be able to say, the children are now working as if I did not exist. So I was just wondering if you can comment on the role of the teacher in Genius Hour.
Okay. What's really interesting is that when I sort of come down back into my school community and say, okay, we're going to do this Genius Hour, even my role as a teacher in being able to sort of explain the merit of this to my colleagues has been really important. And something that I didn't mention at the start of this is that I'm not actually in the classroom anymore. So I'm still here in my school, but I'm helping students and teachers from Prep to 6 around pedagogy integration of technology and things like that. And it's been great to see that Genius Hour with those teachers in 5-6 has still continued. So that's been great. The role of the teacher itself, I guess, really is in that Genius Hour project needs to be that mentor, that facilitator, that guide on the side that can take them through that process and get the kids, asking the kids the right questions and steering them in the right direction to get them to come up with these products and solutions from themselves, not have the teacher do the work for them. So I think that's really important. One thing that we've tried this year, in a large cohort of 130 kids, sometimes very easy for them to get lost, but we've set up now teachers and mentor groups where we've got 7 or 8 groups that report to a particular teacher every fortnight. So a teacher can sit down with them, have a mini conference and say, okay, how are you going with it? What's been happening? What are your challenges? Can I give you any advice? You know, and that has worked a little bit better this year, we felt. Rather than kids coming up to us when they needed advice, we've now got structured time to check in with each group to see how that's going. So that's worked really well.
Thank you for that.
No worries. Any other questions?
I'm waiting. Jenny Ashby looks like she might have a question. She's going to post it on Twitter for me, so we'll get to that one in a second. Yeah, I think that was interesting, the comment, because the person on Twitter suggested that you're a mentor, you're a co-worker in that role. So it is a big step away from the traditional idea of the teacher being at the front.
Definitely.
Okay, now I've just got another question. I noticed that you had someone brought in a bike and added a motor to the bike, and then at another stage, someone else had worked with a parent. Or what's been the or how has it drawn the community into your school by having Genius Hour?
Sure. It's been really interesting to see the sort of, like particularly that bike example. Obviously, you know, that particular student got a lot of help from his dad with that. And I know one group at the moment, they're attempting to build a go-kart that's in fact powered by solar. That same group, they made a scooter last year, a motorised scooter that was powered by battery. And you can see a video of that and see their project on our blog. And so I know that particular parent was really engaged with that group, you know, because obviously that parent is bringing their talents and their passion to that group as well, which is great to see. But what's been really fascinating is at our Open Expo, when we invite our school community, so we'll have all of our preps students all the way up to Year 4 come into the Year 5, 6 area, all the teachers, we open up to all the parents in the school community and getting them to come in and see. And the parents are just blown away by what the kids can actually achieve. And myself being blown away as well in terms of, you know, giving them true freedom and the opportunity to be, you know, a real creative outlet, what they're in fact capable of, which is just absolutely amazing. So I think that's been great to see. One thing that I would like to continue to do is engage with other people in the wider community and abroad. So, you know, anybody watching this either now or post, if you are doing Genius Hour, please connect with us. We'd love to, you know, view your students' projects. We'd love you to view ours as well. And maybe we could engage in Hangouts as well, because I think the kids take a lot of pleasure in sort of broadening their horizons and seeing, wow, these are all kids in other places around the world that are also doing Genius Hour.
Thanks, Anthony. Now I've got a really tough question for you, and it's one that everyone always thinks about when they're hearing about Genius Hour, because I think it is impossible not to be blown away by how amazing kids are when we get out of their way. However, we do have, unfortunately, a bunch of principals out there that love standardized testing. What tips do you have for teachers that are really keen on starting Genius Hour in their school, in schools where principals love standardized testing?
I guess one of the problems is, first of all, finding the time, because a lot of teachers will say, or principals say, well, we don't have any time because we've got so much curriculum to deliver. We haven't really found that problem. I think this school is quite good at integrating our approach. That, you know, it's been very easy to find 1 hour in the week. And I think you've got to really decide what's pulling you forward rather than what's pulling you backwards. So, okay, yes, things like standardized testing and the need to deliver curriculum and timetabling and looking at it and saying, okay, we need to do 2 hours of literacy every day or whatever it might be pulling us back. But what's pulling us forward is the idea that through Genius Hour, we're still doing literacy, you know, and my argument will probably be it's probably much more meaningful and purposeful as well. And we haven't found the need to formally assess any of these, not that we would assess a final product from Genius Hour, but even assess maybe their presentation skills or maybe their writing skills when they put forward a proposal. But I know quite a few schools that have faced difficulty bringing this to their leadership, and the way that they've been able to justify it is say, okay, we'll take the Genius Hour approach, but we'll assess the writing. It'll be a persuasive piece. It'll be an exposition as to why they're going to pursue their Genius Hour project. And so that's how they sort of bring it into their school community, by incorporating assessment ideas.
Thank you for that. We haven't got any other questions on our Edu on Air Hangout on Google+.
That's okay. I'm a bit conscious that we're pretty much on time, and there might even be a lag between live questions. And if anyone posts questions on the Education on Air website, I will be able to answer those at a later time. So I'll definitely do that, or any questions via Twitter or email or blog on Google+, you know, shoot them my way, and I'll definitely be happy to answer them over the next couple of days.
So I'll just point out that your Twitter handle is @AnthSperanza, not @AnthonySperanza. We did have one issue with a tweet going to the wrong person, so I'm sure you'll be happy to answer questions from that Twitter account.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you, Anthony, for continuing to share the knowledge and for really being an amazing model for our kids about what we'd love to see moving forward, which is more of that sharing the knowledge and helping everyone to become better at what we do. It's very evident how passionate you are, and I love that while the students are on their own little Genius Hour journey, you're on your own journey about how to get better at teaching it and how to get better at getting the best out of your students. So I think that's something that we can all take away from this. I'm really grateful for all of the resources that you've shared today, and I will certainly be using some of those in my school. So I'd like to thank you, Anthony, and look forward to working with you more in the future.
Thank you so much, and thanks everybody. See you later.